guess we're getting started. So, I know this is right out there, but we're going to start talking about something completely different. A TED Talk that Bill Gates gave in the early 2000s. And he was talking about mosquitoes and malaria, because as we know, Bill Gates is one to talk about mosquitoes and malaria. And he was in a crowded room full of people, and he had a cup like this, and it was sealed probably better than this, and it had a bunch of mosquitoes in it. And he was walking around talking about the dangers of malaria and how mosquitoes are a vector for malaria. And he said, here in this cup is filled with mosquitoes. Some of them might be infected with malaria, because that's what mosquitoes are wont to do. And then he released the potentially malaria-infected mosquitoes into the room of TED Talk audience and said, there, how does it feel to basically live in a West African country where mosquitoes and malaria are a constant threat? So, we wanted to do something similar with radioactive radon, but we couldn't get any, and we couldn't find anything to hold it in. So, we tried to poison you with radioactive radon, but I guess we failed. And you may not know why it would be a bad thing to release a lot of radioactive radon into the air in this room, and that's why they're going to tell you about some of the dangers of radon.
Okay, so everybody knows that smoking causes cancer, lung cancer in particular. And we all know that if you want to avoid lung cancer, then you don't smoke cigarettes. So what you're trying to avoid is carcinogens. And if you're trying to avoid carcinogens and live a healthy life, why do we ignore one of the most prevalent carcinogens in the United States? Radon. So what is radon? Radon is a naturally occurring, odorless, clear radioactive gas that comes from the natural decay of uranium in soil. And you all know uranium, the main component in those notoriously reliable sources of power, nuclear reactors. Radon is a close cousin. Why is radon a problem? Well, for starters, radiation. Radon in many parts of the world is the single largest source of radiation for individuals. 36% of Scotland citizens' annual dose of radiation comes directly from radon. Also, it is known carcinogen. Carcinogens are substances that are proven to cause cancer, and radon is one of the leading causes of lung cancer in the United States. Okay, so we're going to do an activity real quick. So, how many of you have had or have been around small children at some point? Okay. You. Can you come up here, please? Yes, please. So when you would take your family like swimming to like a pool or a beach, what would you do to take precautions to make sure they're safe?
Sunscreen and shower after the pool to get whatever off. And sometimes shower before the pool in order to.
And what about when they couldn't swim yet?
Oh, we would use life preservers or little floaty things. We call those little floaties.
Yeah.
Anchors.
Not like floaties.
Okay. So how many of you own a home?
Okay.
Own a home? Yeah, I say it. Okay. You own a home, right?
I do.
Can you come up here, please? Do you have fire detectors in your home?
Yes.
Why?
To prevent us not being able to get out because of the fire.
Because they warned you that there was fire, right? Okay. How many of you guys have a family member of some sort of advanced age? Like an elderly person in your family? Bring it in. Come here. Are you ever worried about them falling down and not having any way of getting up?
Yeah.
Okay. Do you guys use any type of like life alert or have a visiting nurse or anything like that? That's okay. So, Kelsey's going to talk to you about this chart.
Okay, so this chart shows you on the that chart shows you on the right-hand side common things that we'll be concerned about. So if you go swimming at the beach with some little kids or something, you're afraid that they might drown. But you can also see the chances of people getting lung cancer, and you know like how radon can affect you, and how likely that is to occur too. It's just something we don't really think about as much. So in the next slide, you can see things that we often hear about and things that we often take precautions about. So drunk driving. You guys have all seen those commercials where they tell you not to drive or to text or things like that, not to drive when you are drunk. And you see life alert commercials too, and lots of things that people will tell you to be careful about, but we often don't hear about radon, which is a big issue. So radon is one of the largest causes of untimely death in the U.S., and there's almost never, I don't think I've ever seen an ad about radon before. But if you're thinking radon still won't affect you, you would definitely be wrong. As you can see in the next slide, the levels of radon in the US are something we probably have never heard about. And if we focus in on Michigan, you can see we put a star on where we live in Michigan. So in the southern parts, so zone 1 is red, and that is where the levels are the highest. And it works its way up to, or down to zone 3 where it's in the best levels, so they're the least toxic. And over on the right-hand side, you can see the star up on the border of Wayne and Oakland County. So most of us live in either Wayne or Oakland County. And if you were to live in Oakland County, you live in a zone 2. And if you live in Wayne, you live in a zone 3. But we all border a red zone too, so it definitely is an issue.
Okay, so we've been talking a lot about the dangers of radon in very abstract terms, in terms of 35% more dangerous than drowning, or zone 1, zone 2, these very abstract ideas. But if you really want to get to the heart of why radon is so dangerous, we need to start talking numbers. And as you know from 7th grade math, numbers require units. So the unit that we're going to be looking at for radon is the unit that you measure to measure radiation, and which is PCI per L, which is picocuries per liter, and it's a measurement of radiation. So for radon in the home, the EPA says that about 2 picocuries per liter is the line that you want to be at where you don't have to take any corrective action. The EPA actually says that no amount of radon is safe, but you will never be able to get to 0 PCI per liter. So 2 is the baseline. There was a study done a few years ago about the distribution of radon and radiation from radon in homes and the different rooms in homes. And this is one of the charts that they provided. Up here you see the front view of the house, so looking at the facade from the road, and here you see the top view, Eagles view. And you can see in the basement there's 1 PCI, in the family room there's 1 PCI, in the office there's 1 PCI, and then over here in the family room right over the crawl space, I'll peak all the way up to 11 PCI, 11 picocuries per liter. And if you remember back to our chart, that's extremely dangerous, almost 4 times as dangerous, or more likely to die of lung cancer at 11 PCI per liter than a family member falling. And you may be wondering, why is there an uneven distribution of radiation in a home? And that has to do with methods of attachment of the home to the ground. So radon enters the home through the ground, basically. It is formed from uranium decomposing into many different decomposition layers into radon, seeps through the ground and into your home. And here you can see the many different paths that radon can take through the ground into your home. So it can enter through your well, it can enter through fittings in your basement, through your sump pump, if any of you know your sump pump in your home, through cracks in the foundation, basically any place where your home is in contact with the earth. So when we keep that in mind, if we look at the next review of homes, you can start to imagine now where, if we have the front view again, you have the basement, which is just 2 PI, which is you might not expect because that's the closest to where all the methods of detecting would be. But if you look at this master bedroom, family room, this would be any type of room in the house, imagine it's your family room, at 10 PCI, so you have a method of attachment right here, maybe a crack in the foundation, maybe a pipe coming into the home, where radiation is seeping up and coming into this room. So it's not always your basement. People associate basements a lot with radon. It's not always your basement. It's not always the lowest occupied area in your home. It can really be any room in your house. And oftentimes it could be anything like a family room, so or a child's bedroom, anything like that, which is why it's so scary. So that is why you need to test, because you can never really be sure. There's no way of knowing, oh, your basement's going to be infested with radon, or oh, this room above this crawl space is going to have radon. Even if you're in a zone 1 zone, and all of your neighbors have tested for radon, they're all okay, it's not a guarantee that your house doesn't have any radon in it. So the first thing you're going to want to do if you know nothing about radon in your home is do a short-term test. Those can last anywhere from a few days to about a month. You're going to want to place those in the lowest occupiable space in your home. A lot of them are charcoal-based, so they'll absorb the radiation. You'll send them off to a laboratory, they'll analyze it, send you the results back. Now, if you get 2 PCI, you're pretty safe. If you get 3 PCI, you might want to consider fixing that all the way up to 4 PCI, and then above 4 picocuries per liter, you're going to definitely want to take some corrective action. And if you're in that range between 2 picocuries per liter and 4 picocuries per liter in the month short-term test, you're going to want to do a long-term test because radiation exposure does fluctuate over the year. So you're going to want to get a very good solid baseline before you start investing the money into your home to make it safer from radon. So the long-term tests operate on very much the same principles as the short-term test. Cost a little bit more. The short-term test is $10, $15 local hardware store online. The long-term test, $25, $35 local hardware store online once again. So you put the long-term test, once again, lowest occupied space in your house, let it sit there sometimes up for a year, send it off to the laboratory, you get it back over 4 PCI, over 2 PCI, you might want to consider getting your home mitigated, as it were. So, Hannah will talk about mitigation.
Okay, so mitigating at even a liberal picocuries per liter can result in massive savings both financially and in lives too. Most mitigation methods make use of a fan and pipe system, which extracts the radon from under your home and release it to the outdoors. During a 74-year period, approximately 50,000 Minnesotans and 20,000 islands could be saved from dying from radon-related lung cancer if all single-family homes with radon concentration greater than 4 picocuries per liter, which is the dangerous level, if all of them were mitigated in some way. These represent about 50% life-saving rates. The magnitude of these potential savings exceeds many other causes of home-related death, of some of which preventative and corrective actions have been mandated. For example, carbon monoxide detectors are required in Minnesota homes. Completely preventing all carbon monoxide fatalities would save 30 deaths per year in Minnesota compared to the 700 per year that could be saved by sustained universal radon mitigation.
I have a radon problem, now what am I going to do and how am I going to fix this? So the way that you can decide on which mitigation type you want to use is based normally on what kind of basement you have or if you do have a basement. So if you do have a basement, you should consider active soil repressurization, which is the most common method, and it's most reliable if you do indeed have a basement. It's used in most buildings because radon enters the home from rocks or foundations, or rocks or soil from underneath your foundation. And it prevents, you would insert a tube into your home underneath your foundation, and it will suck the radon out, and then you have vents and fan systems that help release the radon into the air outside your home, so it's quickly diluted to levels that are not as toxic. And the average cost is about $1,500. And another type is ventilation, which you could use if you do not have a basement, you have like a home with a crawl space, or neither. So you could use a heat recovery system, and it replaces indoor air with the radon, or it replaces radon-laden air with outdoor air, and it heats the air coming inside the home with the air leaving. And it's about $400 for a wall-mounted system, and about $30 to operate, and it reduces radon to 50 to 75%. And it also improves air quality in homes with other air pollutants. So it is a good method to consider if you do not have a basement.
Now, I don't want to disparage Kelsey's methods of mitigation, but a lot of them, you may be saying to yourself, are very expensive. What if I only have 3 picocuries per liter, 4 picocuries per liter in my basement in a sunroom? What am I going to do then? I don't necessarily want to invest $1,500 in a basement when I don't really need it. There are some very easy, very simple, very practical ways as well of mitigating radon in your home. And most of them have to do with what you generally refer to as sealing, or insulation, sort of, you can think of it. So, you know insulation in your walls. You have the pink fiberglass that you put in the rolls in your walls, and you have the windows that are double painted. You're trying to keep the cold air from coming in the winter, keep the hot air from getting out in the summer. It's the same thing with sealing in your basement. You're trying to keep the radon from coming up through the ground. And like we talked about before, those methods of attachment, you're going to want to find those cracks in your foundation, fixtures in the basement, exposed earth, and just seal them up. You're going to want to use plastic, fix any broken pipes, pump some cement into your foundation if you need it. And it doesn't remove radon as, the efficiency rates are only maybe 50%, but if you're at those moderate range of picocuries per liter, 2 to 4, then it's going to get you down into a safe level, and you definitely won't have to spend the thousands of dollars that you would on other methods. If you're, like in the previous studies, you got sunroom with 11 picocuries per liter, or 20 or something, some crazy level like that. So this is a good, very moderate option. And just in a quick conclusion, I hope you understand that we've been talking about radon. And if you don't, you're in trouble. But so yeah, we've been talking about radon, the different means of mitigating radon, the dangers, the causes of radon, the different reasons why it's coming into your home. And it's a lot like fire. You've gone to assemblies, a lot of your high schoolers. Remember in middle school when we had those fire assemblies and the firemen would come into your school and tell you the importance of having a fire detector in your home? Yeah? Well, we've seen Gloria saying no. She has no idea what I'm talking about. But we've seen that there's more dangerous than fires, more dangerous than drowning, more dangerous than all of the things that we consider very dangerous in society. Drunk driving, car accidents, more dangerous than anything. So why wouldn't you put a detector in your home, test your home, and make sure that you and your family are safe?